How many here have been to the Needles Cathedral spires? Oh, if you get a chance, go check it out. It's a really cool scenic drive, and there's all these granite spires, and sometimes you see climbers up on the spires. So Herb and Jan Kahn came here because of that, but they met up with a guy by the name of Dwight Deal, and Dwight was doing his master's thesis on the geology of Jewel Cave, and he couldn't go solo into the cave. He'd have to have at least 2 other people. So he recruited the Kahns to help him out with his study. When they came out of that very first trip into Jewel Cave, they were hooked. They had just become cavers. And the nice thing about this was they didn't have to give up rock climbing to go caving. There's lots of climbing right down here in the cave system. So they could combine those 2 things, rock climbing and caving. And then the other thing they liked about this was the thought of being the first human beings to set foot in passageways and rooms like this. Kind of a special feeling. And they thought it'd be fun to create a map of it. So they went to the Park Service and they volunteered their time to do so. In fact, they volunteered over 6,000 hours in the cave, which would equate to about 700 trips. Back then, they used to go on a caving trip. It would take generally about 8 to 10 hours at the very most. But nowadays, our cave explorers can go into the cave for up to 4 days and 3 nights and actually camp out down in the cave system. But the Kahns put a lot of time and effort in here, and they created a map of 65 miles of passageways. That's pretty phenomenal. That's ambitious. And of course, 20 years of that, they aged, and the cave didn't much. But in 20 years, they aged from their 40s up into their mid-60s. And once into their mid-60s, as we all know, that's kind of, sort of, generally retirement age. Right? Some of us never get to retire. Others retire early. But around 65, they decided, well, it's time to slow down. Time to semi-retire. So they passed the torch, so to speak, onto that younger generation. I'll tell you what, that younger generation's been doing an amazing job of keeping up with what I like to call the Kahn legacy. We're now up to 195 miles, no end in sight. There's so much potential here. We believe there could be thousands of miles of cave passageways lying beneath the southern hills.